you are so intolerant of others and their differences, what makes you right and them wrong? Show me where it says you're the right one and that I'm the wrong one. Please, identify that to me. Enjoy who you are. Try different things, and don't be afraid to fail.
Welcome, everybody. We are doing a podcast with the goddess of creativity and a thought provoker, as well as a devil's advocate. And I, on purpose, cut out a whole bunch of her profile because these is what stood out in my brain. And knowing Robin, what I've known of her, she definitely covers all of that. Robin, welcome. How are you, my dear?
I'm fine. I'm excited to be here with you, Rima. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. This is my first time doing a podcast, so I am overly excited about it.
I'm so glad, and I am so astonished that this is your first podcast, especially because you have done so much training, corporate, you've done all kinds of things with your consulting company that you've had for over 30 years. You've developed programs, you do resume writing expertise. So I'm astonished that I'm the first, and I'm thrilled that I'm the first to have you on my podcast so that I can hear all the wonderful things about you. Robin, for me, it's always
Yes.
wonderful to get to know the human being. I've gotten to know you a little bit, but I would like our audience to know who you are. So, would you do me a favor and let us
Sure.
know a little bit about your background? I'm talking even childhood, so that people see the
Oh, wow.
individual that has become this great person that is training and is dealing with so many different individuals. Take me a little bit through your background.
Okay, well, Rima, first off, who said I was human? We'll start with the easy part. I do go by the goddess, so there is that. Let me think. I'm pretty off center, I guess. I'm not your normal person that you would meet. Normally have a very positive energy and a positive vibe when it comes to life. Growing up not was not the easiest. I was the youngest of four children, and I have one sibling still remaining. My two brothers have passed away, so that kind of has impacted me as well. So my big brothers are gone, and now I only have a big sister. Um, Grew up in a suburban town called Westchester, Pennsylvania. It's about 30 miles outside of Philadelphia. And it was a very mixed population. We had a little bit of everything, and including on my block was very, very mixed when I was growing up as well. Due to gentrification, I think there's only two Black families left on the block, but that's okay. Um, it has been interesting because, going to high school, I was friends with everybody. I was reflecting, we're getting ready to come up on, dare I say, 50 years for my class reunion coming up in 2027. I'm sorry, 2025. And it's interesting to think about who did I hang out with in high school, even. And I kind of hung out with the nerds. I was on debate team. I hung out with, the future health providers of America. I hung out with the athletes because I played tennis and lacrosse and hockey. I hung out with, I call them the stoners. I was just always friends with them. I hung out with everybody. The drama club. I didn't quite really pick a group to identify with. I just kind of identified with people. People had the right vibe, that understood that I was a little bit off center and crazy and accepting of everybody. And so growing up like that, and then funny part is I decided to go to an HBCU, which is historically Black college or university. And I think the reason I went there was to learn how to be Black. It was never an issue, but I remember people asking me, was I Black or white? And, both of my parents are African American, so that makes me technically Black. But then in doing ancestral, I found out that is not the case. And it's a little disconcerting at first because, when you think you're something and then you turn out to be something else, and it's like, that's interesting. I wonder how that got in there. But the interesting part was I met my husband in college, and we have one extremely gorgeous son who is gorgeous inside and out. He is very, very talented. and I always take credit for him. I say that he takes after his mom. He's very outgoing. He's extraordinary. His name is John, and he is, I can say, the best thing that came out of my marriage. I'm now divorced, but enjoying being. How can I explain this? I enjoy my own company. Is probably the best way to describe it. Do I have male companions? Sure, I do. But when all is said and done, is you go home at the end of the night. This is my house, so I'm enjoying being my own person for a change. I don't have to pretend to be somebody to meet somebody else's expectations. So my philosophy now, as I reach the wonderful age in my 60s, is this is who I am, accept it or not. And we can part as friends. You can go your way, I can go my way, or we can be simpatico. So I'm enjoying doing that. I hate to use the word retired because I'm technically not. I'm repurposed. For a number of years, I was a corporate trainer. I had my own company since the 90s, and I would go into a corporation, do an assessment of what I thought they needed versus what management thought they needed, and then develop training for them as well. So loved it. To me, that was my absolute high. I mean, that was where, it was just like, made my heart just, go pitter patter. I loved doing that. It was exciting. And I ended up working with a company doing some training for them called Lee Hecht Harrison, who is one of the internationally largest outplacement firms. And what they basically did is if you got laid off, they would provide you job coaching and training and so forth. I was doing, revamping some of their training for them. And I became an outplacement counselor. And from there, I handled a lot of executive coaching and resume writing and so forth. So, having spent about 13 years with them as a consultant, when I decided to repurpose myself, my clients, believe it or not, would continually call me and say, well, you did a great job, helping me get my last job. Can you help me get this job? And in my semi-retired mood, I have been repurposed into an executive job coach and resume guru, as I like to say. People have, I'm not tooting my own horn. You can go on LinkedIn, you can look at some of my reviews, but a lot of my clients will tell you that, the resume and the interview coaching that I do with them has helped them secure their jobs in a relatively short period of time. So I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I'm pretty proud of that and pretty excited when they come back and tell me, that it meant a lot to them. So much so, a lot of them even send their kids to me now, which then makes me feel really old. Well, my mom said that you, and I'm like, oh, geez, who's your mom? They'll tell me, and I'm like, oh my God, she was my client like 20 years ago. Oh my God. So that to me is the validation that you must be doing something right when people refer their children to you, or they come back themselves for a second round or a third round of job search. That pretty much is me. I have one kid. I have a dog who is very spoiled. His name is Pepper. He might show up on the video, on the podcast, so just be prepared for that. He's a very spoiled poodle that has been rescued. I rescued him about, 8 years ago now. I tried to get rid of him. I tried to rehab him and find him a nice family, but he refused to go. So I think I'm kind of stuck with him at this point.
Robin, you said so many rich things already in what you said that I'd like to break it down because there's so many incredible individuals out there that are looking to create a life for themselves that they love. And you have done that through all the things that you've created, from your consulting to your training. Even though growing up, it was a little bit of a challenging childhood, you still found your way out. And I would love for you to define, when you say you're off-centered, what does that mean? So that if someone is listening and they think that I'm not okay, that they understand that they're more than okay.
Well, okay, great. The N word, normal, will never come out of my mouth when I describe myself. I prefer Abby normal. I like so many different things that you wouldn't think I would like. Well, how can I explain this? Heavily into spirituality and not religion. I find religion to be a scam. It's all about getting someone's money or whatever. It doesn't mean I don't have faith in a higher being. I do. But in that case, I'm very spiritual. And I don't, when I look around the world and I see people who don't like Muslims, or they don't like Christians, or they don't like Jewish people, they're still people. Regardless of who you pray to, you're still a person, and you've got this spirituality about, a higher being helping with your life. And to me, I guess at a very early age, I was probably about 15 or 16, I started getting into Native American spirituality, started reading tarot cards. When I was younger, when I was probably 5 or 6 years old, I remember telling my sister, or asking my sister, why does someone look a certain color? I say, well, why is Mr. So-and-so green? Or why is Mrs. So-and-so blue? And she's looking at me like, what do you mean blue? And I didn't realize at the time that I was seeing people's auras. And I remember her telling me, because you always listen to your big sister, don't say that. People will think you're crazy. And so I stopped telling people what color they were or what their aura was. I didn't realize it was their aura. I just thought that they were blue or green or yellow or black or whatever. So I stopped, I was saying, well, I don't want to be crazy. So I stopped doing it. Instead, what happened was, now at this age, I'm trying to regain that talent I had. But all my life, I've been very intuitive as to people's auras without seeing their colors. And I think we all do to a certain extent, is when you meet someone and almost immediately if they're a good person with a good vibe, or they're like, let me be careful of this person. Something's not quite right with them. And over the years, for the most part, about 95% of the time, I've listened to that little inner voice telling me whether somebody was good, bad, or, and it hasn't led me wrong. But that's like one of the innate talents that I had growing up that made me kind of off. We used to do seances, in high school. I would play the guitar and draw. And there were things that typically Black kids in suburban America didn't do. They were more or less, you would find like the woo-woo white kids doing, but not necessarily the Black kids. I went to a private school. I was the only Black kid in the entire school. So I had a different point of reference, I think, than most of my African American counterparts in school. So when I went to a public school, it was kind of a hard transition. Being in top sections, still being the only Black kid in all of my top classes, and the other Black kids looking at you like, you think you're white, so I was kind of like didn't know exactly where I fit in. So I didn't. And that was okay. I fit in with everybody that I wanted to fit in with. And now it's like, going back to reunions over the years, it's like everybody remembers me, which I think is really kind of odd. Like, okay, so who are you? But I think it's really fun that, I remember when you did blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, really? You remember that? Like, oh my God. So in finding out who you are, you have to experiment. You have to try different things. And some things will work for you, some things won't. Some things you'll say, I'm never doing that again. And so other things will just kind of fit who you are, and your personality will come very easy to you. So for those people out there, I just say, don't be afraid to break out of the box that people want to put you in. Build your own box, or don't build a box at all. Have no walls. Just try different things. Like I said, that's the only way you'll find out who you are, what you like, what you're about. And I think that was, I think that's probably the reason I'm not married anymore, because he wanted to put me in a box. And for a while, I let it happen. And I was like, wait a minute, that's not who I am. So in regaining who I am, I think that's when we decided to part ways, because he didn't like the fact that I was being autonomous again. I think that was it. So yeah, enjoy who you are, try different things, and don't be afraid to fail. Some things you're not going to be good at, some things you're going to be great at. So
I could definitely see where the thought provoker on your LinkedIn comes in very well, and the devil's advocate, because you definitely get people to think and to really pay attention to what they're being. I would love, as you went into the corporate world and you became a trainer. Go ahead. And you became a trainer.
It's funny that you say that. I think I've always been a trainer. I used to tutor kids when I was in 9th grade. My algebra teacher asked me if I would tutor the other students. I hate math. I will say that I do not like math. I love numbers, but I don't like math.
Mm.
And I was extremely good at it for some reason. That was just something that just came very naturally to me. So I ended up tutoring kids in ninth grade. When I got to college as a freshman, I was the only TA allowed on campus. I was in biology, and the biology chairman, for some reason, just took a liking to me. Dr. Harrison was an amazing person, and he asked if I would help him with the non-majors labs for biology. So I ended up being a TA for him throughout my time at Lincoln University. When I got my first adult job, or I won't say real job because I've been working since I was 12. But when I got my first adult job at the age of 20, I worked for a bank, and I ended up being the trainer for new tellers that came through. So I've always had this training piece to anything I did. And I think that also came naturally because I come from a long line of teachers. My mother was a teacher, my sister was a teacher. My grandmother was trained as a teacher, although when she came up in the early 1900s, they did not allow blacks to teach black children. So she ended up being a domestic, although she was trained to be a teacher. My aunties were all teachers or in education. So I come from a very long line of teachers. My mother kept saying, well, why don't you be a teacher? I said, well, mommy, I'm a trainer. I don't teach. I'm a trainer. I hated the thought of being a teacher, which I thought was hilarious. But when I said I was a trainer, she goes, oh my God, you're finally a teacher. I'm like, no, mommy, I'm a trainer. So for some reason that word teacher just didn't sit well with my soul. But I love the training aspect of it. Oftentimes when I think of teachers, it's a lot of lecture, the student trying to absorb the information and so forth. But with training, it's a give and take. You give, you make sure that they get it, that they're repeating it back to you.
Robin, I love the distinction that you're making between a teacher versus a trainer. Would you elaborate a little more on that? Because I see myself also as a trainer, but for a lot of people that say you teach, they go, I teach, but I'm more of a trainer. So go into that distinction a little more.
I think the biggest difference is, and especially when you think of a traditional teacher, their job is to uh, give information to students. I'm going to lecture you, I'm going to give you information, you have to do the reading, and a lot of it you have to kind of get on your own. And they leave it up to the student that if you have questions, you've got to ask. Whereas with training, even though you're giving information as well, it's more hands-on. They've got exercises to do as you're teaching so that they have their aha moments. It's a lot more interactive, I think, than the traditional teaching model would be. Teachers say, raise your hand if you know the answer to blah, 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 blah. But that's kind of just, regurgitation of information, whereas training is practical use. Let's take what we've learned or what we've talked about and put it into practical applications. So it takes teaching to the next level to make sure that there's clarity and understanding on the information that's being covered.
That's a wonderful explanation for a lot of people that wonder the difference. For
A
you to
little
explain.
different. And to
Yes.
me, it's great when, people get it and they have that, aha, I get it. And it's like, yes, I did it. Yes, you got it. And I've always been of the ilk that if I can teach and train someone to do what I'm doing, then I am free to go and learn something else. So that helps me with my thirst for knowledge and always learning something new to add to my repertoire.
And you also touched in the beginning when you went in to do training, you went in not because of what they basically asked for. You went in and really figured out what they needed.
Mm-hmm.
What was that process like? Because a lot of people, honestly, that do train, they take it word for word and I believe they miss out on the opportunity to make an impact, a real impact.
Mm-hmm. What I normally do is when a company will call me and say, well, we'll give an example. We need customer service training. Okay. I'm really good at customer service training. I always ask for a couple of days to do an assessment to find out where their weaknesses are, where their strengths are, and then I'll report back and then I kind of modify what they need. And then I'll build their training program from there. So during the assessment phase, if they say XYZ department is in serious need of customer service training because we're getting so many complaints, blah, 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 blah. I'll give an example of one company I worked with. That's what management said. Okay, went in, started talking to their people. I observed them for a couple of days. I talked to them. Um, and it turned out, this is hilarious. It turned out that they didn't have a customer service issue. They were absolutely wonderful. What was lacking was they were kind of the forgotten department. They didn't have a fax machine. We're talking about a couple of years ago. They didn't have a fax machine, so they would have to go up 2 flights or 2 levels to even use a fax machine. They were kind of like in the basement, forgotten, and they wondered why they had such poor morale. And they thought that translated into poor customer service, but it wasn't. They weren't acknowledged for the work they did, although their work was very critical for the other departments to function efficiently. And they did need some updated computer training, and they needed new equipment. So by assessing that, I said, they could polish their skills a little, but they're marvelous people. They just need to be treated as such, and they need to be acknowledged. And so we worked around having, more employee appreciation. They got new equipment in, they got the training that they needed on the computer end. I don't do technical training. And I did modify their customer service manuals and update their processes to go along with their new equipment that they had, that were being installed as well. So what they thought was a morale issue or a negative customer service issue really wasn't. It was more of a morale issue that they needed to address. So in doing that assessment, and I do that every time I'm asked to do a training program, I will assess first, because oftentimes upper management never goes down to talk to the people who they think are the ones affected. So for me, just talking to people, understanding where they're coming from, gaining their trust, and assuring them that regardless of what they tell me, it goes no further than me, it will help me to make an assessment. I said, I will report back to management. Your names will never come up, but it will help me address what your real needs are.
You hit on something so gigantic, honestly,
I know.
Robin.
It's so simple, though, but people don't listen to other people. They just assume they know what's best instead of asking them. If you want to know what's best for a person doing a particular job, ask them. They're the ones doing the job. I mean, it's like, duh.
I love that, because I do listen to a lot of individuals that work in different corporations, and you hear a lot of this discrepancies between people because they're not communicating. They're not talking to each other. They're talking at each other.
Exactly. And that makes I'm your boss and you should listen to me, kind of thing. Yeah.
I'd like to go back a little bit and understand, what did you learn from your mother and what did you learn from your grandmother? Because it's incredible to be back at the early 1900s and late 1800s and have women that are educated, that have impacted who you are, even though there were still a lot of challenges, obviously, growing up in the United States at that point. What did you learn from them?
By the time I came along, my grandmother was in her 70s, 80s. I mean, when I became cognizant of other people, I should say, she was in her late 70s, 80s. And so she was swiftly down-nosing into dementia. But from her, I learned my love of hats. I love hats. I have probably 30 or 40 hats. I love to wear hats. And I got her fashion sense. I also got my love of cooking from her and my great auntie. I should say grand auntie. She was my grandmother's best friend, and we just called her auntie. So cooking and fashionista sense. From my mother, a couple of things I learned from her. One, she always told my sister and I to make sure we were educated. And she treated us differently than she treated my brothers, because she said the boys can always work with their hands, but girls need to be smart and well educated to take care of themselves. She also told me to have my own money, always have my own money. I also learned from her how not to be a mom. I know that sounds weird, but growing up, she and my father were so busy trying to provide. that they weren't really the greatest parents. Like, I can't remember us taking really family vacations together, doing fun things like that if it wasn't involved with the church. Like, our church would have a picnic at, an amusement park, and that's when we got to go to amusement park. But as a family, we really didn't do a lot of things together. We went to visit relatives for the day because they lived in Jersey, but we really didn't do a lot as a family. We were kind of left to fend for ourselves. And so I learned what not to do as a parent. So when I became a mom, there's no manual on how to raise a child. So I just said, well, what did mom do? Okay, let's do the opposite. So things like, spending the afternoon, I would take him out of school and we'd go fly kites in the park, or, we'd go swimming, or we'd do something that was fun together. And those were the memories he has now, even as he's like 40 something. He remembers the things that we did together. Like, we took off one summer day and we went to Six Flags over Texas. We just did all kinds of weird stuff like that oftentimes didn't cost a lot of money, but would definitely have memories attached to them. We'd make Christmas ornaments together. We would cook together. We would bake together. So those, he, for some reason, he loves fireplaces. So we would build a fire together. We go camping. I was the Cub Scout mom, so I ran the pack. So I mean, he appreciated things I did. I was a soccer mom. Um, Everything my parents didn't do, they didn't support my athletic uh, adventures. If I was on debate, they didn't come to debate. I was shocked when my mother came to a play I was in. Um, that was, so I did learn some things from my mother, but like I said, I learned a lot of what not to do as a parent. But as a woman, um, she wasn't a girly girl. She was an artist, which was part of the problem, because she was very expressive when it came to art, whether it was in oils or sculpting or screening or doing whatever. She's very artistic, but she wasn't your typical girly girl mom. She didn't, she would prefer to wear a pair of jeans than to wear, and there was always dirt under her fingernails because she was a gardener too, than to put on a frilly dress and high heels. I mean, she did that too, but that was like, I gotta get your ass. So I get it. I do get it. I do get it. But yeah, she was an amazing person. She was my Renaissance woman. As I became an adult, I appreciated her more for what she did and who she was versus what kind of parent she was, if that makes any sense. I
Mhm.
saw her as a person, not as my mother. And that I appreciated.
That's really a
Although
key.
always, she always compared me to my sister. She always said, be more like Cheryl. And I was like, for the longest time, I hated my big sister because that's who I was always compared to. And a funny story, when I became a teenager, my mother was literally getting on my last nerves. And so I said, well, I'm going to go visit Cheryl, because she lived in upstate New York at that time. She was, already out of college. And I went to visit her one summer. And I saw her as my escape vehicle. Didn't necessarily like her, but, I can get out of the house. So I went to visit her, and we had a long talk. And I told her how much I disliked her and I hate being compared to her. And she said, that's not my fault. That's mom's fault. And I said, you mean I've been hating the wrong person all these years? And we laughed and chuckled about it. And then we became very fast and furious friends after that. Because it wasn't that we disliked our mom, but we realized that she was the one who was pitting us against each other, not us, so to speak. So it was kind of nice to have a sister now.
It's kind of neat that you said a key to relationships is when you get to the point when you see your parents or any person that you have in your family as an individual versus only a relationship, a mom, a dad, a sister. You get to see the person themselves.
Yes,
That alters things a lot.
it does, and you have to kind of step outside. Now, people will try and go back into their roles, but when I look at it, I said, I'm a mother, yes. Um, I'm a mother. I'm a lover. I'm a sister. I'm an auntie. I'm a grandmother. You have all these labels, but then when it comes down to it, do people really like the person that I am? Do they really know the person that I am outside of those roles that you play? Um, and I try to look at the whole person, versus, like you say, versus the relationship you have with them. I belong to Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority, which has, oh gosh, um, hundreds of thousands of members worldwide. And there are people in my own chapter. We have about 280 people in my chapter in Wilmington that I belong to. And there are people that I just don't like. We may be in the same sorority, but there's something wrong with you. There's something wrong with your soul. There's something wrong with your psyche. And I stay away from them. I said, I still respect them as a member of the sorority, but you won't see me hanging out with them. And there's other people that at first glance, because of who they hung with, I just automatically didn't like them. But then because of circumstances, I find myself either working on a committee with them and when they're outside of their little circle or their little clique, they're a whole different person. Mm. And so I find myself saying, is it the person or is it the circumstances or is it their relationship with other people? And I judge people accordingly from there. And there's some people that I have become, I won't say necessarily friends, because that to me is a very sacred word, but have become associates with. It takes a lot for people to become my friend. I think I probably can count on two hands the number of friends I actually have in this world. I guard who I am and I guard my personal space very much. But I have lots of people who I can associate with and I can mingle with and I can work with versus people that I say are in my inner circle. Mm. And I think we all have to do that to protect our psyche to some degree. We all have to have that inner circle of people that we know we can trust with our vulnerabilities. And then there's other people that they're kind of like the next layer out. And then there's people that are the next layer out, the next layer out. So it's kind of like a ripple on a pond. You have those that are at the center, and then it kind of goes out from there as far as your relationships with them is concerned or how they fit into your world.
I'd love to know, because of all your wonderful knowledge and corporate training and all the different organizations that you've worked with, how is that like a wonderful component, or is it in the resume writing part where people come to you and go, help me refine on paper who I am so people actually see me? How has that worked?
Wow.
I ask tough questions sometimes.
That's a tough one. I think because I have such a diverse background, I used to say I was the alphabet employee. For some reason, I just couldn't settle on a company. I worked in the automotive industry. I worked for Ford Motor Company. I worked in banking. I had a catering firm at one point in my life. So I was kind of going down the ABCs of things. I did marketing. I did telemarketing. I sold perfume and had a franchise for a perfumery. There's like so many different things that I've done in my lifetime. I was a waitress in college. I ran a snack bar at it was Ames department store. I was in college. Ames department store doesn't exist anymore, but its equivalent would be something like a Walmart. So I think that the moral to the story is I've had so many different jobs. I was never afraid to try anything new. I never thought that I was above doing anything. And my thought is if I want somebody to do something, I have to be willing to do it as well. I've always led by example. And I think because I have such a diverse background, and as I said, my undergrad and one of my masters is in biology. My other one is in learning and development. I was able to relate to scientists. I'm able to relate because I was in banking, the stodgy executives, automotive. I can do the frontline people as well. One of the most fun positions I've had or companies I've worked with is Sunoco, dealing with the people who run the pipeline. And, even though here I am coming in, as a trainer, coach, executive coach, I taught I helped the people who were at the top of the food chain, the managers and so forth, and also the guys who were doing the rigging. So they felt like I was one of them. I never felt like I was better than anybody. That's one thing my mother had taught me too, is that you're not better than anybody. Everybody puts their pants on the same way as you do. And you have to give people respect for whatever they're doing, because you don't know what their circumstances are. You don't know what their background is and so forth. So you can't assume that you're better than they are because you're more educated or you make more money or, whatever. And I think because of that philosophy and thinking of people in terms of who they are, helps me to get in and gain trust so that people can give me a clear understanding of who they are and where their talents are. My job as an executive coach and resume writer is to pull out the things that they think are minor that actually are a plus to decide who they are. So we start with the basics when I'm doing resume writing. Okay, let's list out your jobs. Okay, what have you done? What do you do in this job? What difference did you make? That's my big question. Well, what difference did you make in this job? What did you do better than anybody else? Were you put on any special projects? Did you help train other people? And I just start asking basic questions because people don't think of themselves as extraordinary. I came in, I did my job every day. Okay, you came in and did your job every day. What would you say is your success rate every day? Did you do 95% of your work? Did you do 110% of your work? Were you always asked to do overtime? Were you asked to take on the new person? They're like, well, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay. That places you above the guy that's sitting next to you. So you just start asking questions and pulling out things. The next thing I do when I do resume writing is I give them homework assignments. I ask them to, describe who they are. Tell me, give me 5 adjectives that describe you. They do. Then I'll say, okay, what your homework assignment for tonight is to go out on the internet and find 5 jobs, up to 5 jobs that you would like to apply for. Doesn't matter where they are. They don't have to be in your area. So they go out, they find these 5 jobs. And from those jobs, I take the descriptions and then I start asking questions on how well are they qualified to do that job. And then you put you kind of reverse engineer the resume in those regards. What is an employer looking for in a potential employee? What are you bringing to the table? How can you help that employer fill that gap and get the work done? Once we do that, then I always look at their LinkedIn profile if they have one. If they don't, then I say, get on LinkedIn. Stay off of Facebook, clean up your Facebook, clean up your Instagram, because employers will look you up on Instagram. They will look you up on Facebook to see what kind of persona you have. And if you're out there doing girls gone wild or boys gone wild, that's not an employee type that they want, unless, they're running a bar. So it's all about your persona, your perception. How are people perceiving you when they first meet you? And sometimes the first way they meet you is through a profile that you've placed online. So I tell people, please clean up your online presence. It's kind of shocking, but now you need to clean this up, or you need to expand on it, because especially on LinkedIn, people will join LinkedIn, but they will forget to actually do a profile. They'll put their name up there. There may or may not be a picture, and there may or may not be a job description or a title of who they are. But after that, people just kind of like, I really didn't think about what I should put there. I don't know what to put there. So I help them with their online presence as well. Once they start applying for jobs, we sometimes will, have a session where we tweak the resume accordingly. And it is a living document. It's not something that's finite. So people need to understand that once you create a resume that you're happy with, then you tweak it towards specific jobs that you're interested in. And I always tell people to have what I call a data dump resume. That's everything you've ever done in your entire life. You don't know when something you did 30 years ago may come in handy. However, you don't necessarily always put it on your resume that you send out because you don't want to age yourself. Believe it or not, Rima, there's age discrimination. Go figure. And people say, you got 30 years experience. Oh, you must be old. Yeah, I am. You don't get knowledge like this from, someone who's just out of college. So oftentimes employers look at your experience as a detriment because they don't want to pay you what you're worth. But they don't know what you're worth. And it may be that you are transitioning from being, this top executive over here, that all you want to do is just, have something to do. Because you're retired, you've got your pension, you're not worried about, money per se, but you're just bored and you want to do something else. So until people know what your motives are for working, and that comes in an interview, but your resume has to reflect that as well. So you play down how many years experience you have and you play up your skill sets instead. So like I said, it's a living, breathing document. It's individual. What works for one client won't work for another. And like I said, it's a process. It's definitely a process. And that also helps in the interviewing process because I like to do mock interviews with my clients before they actually have a real interview to find out where they are and how they define themselves and how they answer questions. So that's kind of my process there.
That's incredible, honestly, because I've seen people work on their resume, but they've never actually delved into their personalities and all the things that they've done. So even the little tidbits that you gave us are going to be incredibly helpful to a lot of individuals out there that don't understand the significance of spelling things out and the data dump into one major document and then fine tuning it.
Mm-hmm.
Robin, you said something that grabbed my attention a lot. Things that a lot of individuals put out on social media, because in this day and age, we hear so much about authenticity and being yourself. I'd love to know your input because of your background, because of all the things that you work with. What do you feel when people post everything that's going on in their life?
Honestly, I think what a sad life they must have if they are only living online. Uh, I know that sounds terrible. I'm not judging people per se, but I'm thinking what is lacking in their life that they need to overshare everything. Because I'm a very private person. If I share online, it's something that usually is PG, uh, and mostly it's food porn. Because I love to cook and I love to create dishes, and I will share the dishes that I do. So it's not like you're seeing my creativity side. You're seeing the things that I create, whether it's a wreath that I'm making, a scrapbook I'm doing, a quilling project I'm doing. You'll see my artistic side more so than anything else about me, and that lets people know who I am creatively. But very rarely will you see the personal side of me. I was overjoyed when I became a grandmother, but I asked permission from my child if it was okay to post a picture of my new grandbaby. So don't overshare, and don't I would say don't share things that your mother would not be proud or would be okay with seeing online. Would it shock her? Would she be rolling over in her grave at this point if I posted something like that? I always think in terms of, what would so and so say, or how is this going to be perceived by the general public? Are they going to get what I'm trying to say, or they're not going to get what I'm trying to say? So it often takes me an entire day to write out a post, because I pick it apart, I put it back together. That doesn't sound right. That could be misunderstood. So I'm very careful about what I post. I also think in terms of people look at especially my LinkedIn profile, to find out who I am. Is she trustworthy? Is she a good fit? What about her sets her off from other people to do what she does? When it comes to Facebook or Instagram, I always forget to post anything there. So, very rarely I might post something I've seen from somebody else, or it might be a quote that I think, just really resonates with me that I want to share with the world. So you really need to be careful what's out there and what people know about you. There's too many stalkers. There's too many crazies out there. You may say, I don't know, I like Joe Biden, or I like Donald Trump. And then, the opposites will then start to stalk you and hound you or harass you. And like, why are you doing, I stay away from politics. I stay away from religion, other than just to support people, as far as the religious aspect is. But again, you be very careful. People should be more careful in what they're posting out there.
You touched on being a grandmother, and I know you have a ritual with your grandkids. Would you share with the audience? Because I think that is so special. Would you share what you do with your grandkids? Because you're in different states.
We're in different states. They live in Texas. I live in Pennsylvania. I have two incredible grandkids that are they're the apple of my eye. They really are. They're my heart outside my chest. John is 13. He just became a teenager in April. Marion is 11, going on 40. She is an extraordinary human being. She so much reminds me of my mother. It's really scary because she paints. She's an artist. She sings. She has my mother's voice. She's a contralto, and I'm like, at 11, she's amazing. She dances, and I'm like, holy crap, it's my mother. She's back. Their birthdays are like 2 days apart. It's hilarious how similar they are. Um, because they're in Texas and they were being homeschooled during the pandemic. Well, they were in California during the pandemic, and they were being homeschooled, of course. So what I would do to help their mother, she has an education background. She has her master's in early childhood education. So to give her a break during the day for an hour or so every day, we would read. We pick a book. We do a couple of chapters each day, and then we discuss the chapters. At the end of the book, then they would have to write a book report. So we were working on writing skills and um, grammar skills. So it was really kind of cool that we do this. And I'm really sad because we finished our last book and now school is out. So we're not reading every day. And I'm so sad that I don't get to see them every day. But Zoom is an amazing format to be able to stay connected with your kids, your grandkids. You're allowed to go on free. You can use up to, I think it's 45 minutes to an hour free. I have, the pro package because I do a lot of Zoom. I did a lot of Zoom meetings during the pandemic. But I think that if more people start to do that, they'll connect more with their kids and their grandkids, their cousins. I've started a once a quarter, I Zoom with my extended family. So my cousins, my nieces, my nephews, their kids, we have a family Zoom meeting because our family is so small by comparison to others. It's very small that we need to stay connected with each other and get to know each other. I mean, I found I had cousins that I didn't even know existed until my uncle passed away in '06. And it was a whole nother side of the family I had no idea even existed. Um, so Zoom is an incredible format to stay connected with people. And that's what I do with my grandbabies. So now we just FaceTime because they have all Apple devices. So we FaceTime a lot now just on GP. Like, how's your day going? I heard you scored a goal. How was your dance recital? What's going on with you? And I'm getting ready to go to Texas in July. So I'm excited to be able to go down and see them for a couple of weeks.
I think it's amazing. We have a mutual friend, Patrick Carney, and he spends and invests a lot of time and energy with his grandkids. And you can see the difference when grandparents invest time and energy into a child. You can definitely see an impact on that child.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's hilarious because especially, well, both of them, both of the grandkids, I think adore me. So when I go to visit, it's almost like I enjoy the nights I get to sleep alone because they always want to come and snuggle with me. Now, mind you, that they're both like, 5'8", 5'6", respectively. And I'm like, it's only a queen size bed. Why are you all in bed with me? Or they'll come and snuggle. Can we read or can we watch a movie? Or, they always want to hang out with me. And I find that to be exciting that you want to go hang out with Nona. Really? You want to hang out with me? My grandson, because I'm usually down for my birthday, which is on Christmas. And so I'm usually down over those holidays. And we had started one year I said, well, you and I are going to cook. It's like, okay, what are we going to cook? So he decided he wanted to make cinnamon rolls. So we found a recipe and, I can't follow a recipe. I think I have ADD. I can't follow recipes. I have to experiment with them. I think that's the biologist chemist in me. So we modified the recipe and we made cinnamon rolls and, we took pictures and, he was so proud of these cinnamon rolls. So the next year, now we're in Texas and he says, I didn't think anything else of it. He goes, well, Nona, can we make cinnamon rolls? You want to make cinnamon rolls? I said, yeah. It's like, okay, so we made cinnamon rolls. So then this last Christmas, I didn't think anything else of it because are we making cinnamon rolls again? That's our thing. Okay. And I said, are you going to want to make cinnamon rolls with me when you're like 18? He goes, oh, no, I will always want to make cinnamon rolls with you. Marion, on the other hand, she's learning to cook. So she'll call me. She'll FaceTime me and say, okay, Nona, I want to make deviled eggs. You make really good deviled eggs. I'm like, okay. So I'm on FaceTime with her, walking her through cooking. So I think that's so much fun. Now, the bad side of that is, let's see, because I'm divorced, they have me as their Nona. They have my ex-husband and his new wife. That's Mimi and Pippi. They have son, and that's on my son's side. Then on my on Sana's side, which is my daughter-in-law, it's her mother and her significant Steph. So it's Umi and Steph, and then it was her father just passed away. Then it was Wally. So they had, four sets of grandparents. But yet, anytime they want something, they'll call me, and I'm like, no, Nona's on the fixed income. Why are you calling me? You've got all these other grandparents to call. And they pretty much put it into perspective. Says, well, one, because you listen to us, and two, because you'll get it. I'm like, you're right. I'm such a softie. It's like, okay, fine. But I'm trying to teach them that, money is not free. You have to do something to get it. Either you have to earn it, or okay, if that costs $50, like my granddaughter wanted ink markers. I think it was ink markers, and they were $50. Thank God they weren't Copic. So she goes, you have Copic? I'm like, yeah, but I work for a living. You don't. So these markers she found, they were $50. And I said, okay. I said, I'll get them for you on one condition. What's that? I said, you have to pay for half of them. So she earned her money, got her $25, and sent it to me. She's such a little mercenary. So she sent it to me, and I'm like, shoot, now I got to go order these things. So I ordered them from Amazon, and, it's usually like the next day or a couple of days. Every day she bugged me. When are they coming? No. You ordered them, didn't you? Where are they? And I'm like, geez, Marion, take a beat here. They're coming. So I sent her the little notice saying when they would arrive, and make sure that she checked the mail for them and everything. But it's funny, but you have to instill in your kids. I love to spoil them. I love to spoil my child and his wife. That's just who I am. But at the same time, there's a price to pay for that spoiling, in that they have to understand the value that goes with that. They were home for the summer. I guess it was 2 summers ago, and John was saving up money. Little John was saving up money to get something. It was like $100. And I said, well, when you come to visit Nona and you stay overnight at Nona's house, I have some work for you to do. And so I had a list of chores that needed to be done and the price value for each one. Like if you walk the dog, it's $5. If you shovel poop, that's another $5. So I put price values on different ones, and you can pick which tasks you want to do, but understand that if you want to make $100, you got to do the whole list. So he worked his little butt off, and I think he got to like 75. And I sent him $75. That's what you earn. That's what you get. I'm not giving you $100. So it's very important, especially it's so easy to spoil grandkids because you have the means to do it. But for me, it's like, what lesson is that teaching them if they just get stuff? They don't value it. But if they have to work for it, or if they know that, they're investing in it as well, then they tend to take care of the things more than they do if it's just given to them.
Ah, so much value in what you just said.
And parents need to realize that too, because like I said, when I was growing up, I didn't know we were, I guess, technically poor. We always had food on the table. We always had clothes on our back. We always had a roof over our head. So it wasn't like we were struggling. But by today's standard, I mean, we didn't live in a luxury house. My house, which I live in now, is actually my family home. I purchased it after my mom passed away, and it's almost 200 years old. But, I look at it. We have 4 bedrooms, and there were 8 people. Do the math. So it was, it's only 1,200 square feet, and I think on the terms of 8 people and 2 dogs living in this house in 1,200 square feet. I mean, by today's standard, it's like a tiny house. But again, we didn't have money for the extra stuff. You couldn't just go to the store and buy stuff. You kind of had to save up to get whatever it was that you wanted. We didn't eat steak and lobster every day. So like I said, I guess by today's, I guess we were considered middle class. I wouldn't say we were poor. We were just kind of Black middle class at that time, because my mother was a teacher. My dad was a cop. My grandmother and auntie were both domestics. My auntie, towards the end of her career, worked at the hospital. She made all the salads for the hospital. And she worked until she was probably like 75 years old. Then she finally retired. But we always saw them working. So we always knew the value of work and what you needed, how you got your money to do stuff the honest way. So like I said, we couldn't just, when you turn 16, your parents give you a car. That was not happening. In fact, when I turned 16 and wanted to learn how to drive, my father had passed away by then. And my mother was like, look, we have one car. I have to get to work. No, you're not driving my car, kind of thing. So it wasn't until I was 18 that I actually learned how to drive my car, to drive a car. And I basically learned because I bought a car first. It was a stick shift. I learned how, my boyfriend at the time taught me how to drive a stick shift, and then I took my driver's test. So, I appreciate that when my son turned 16 and he wanted a car. And because I guess we could afford it at the time, I was already divorced, but my husband also worked for Ford. So he gave him a car and didn't have to pay for insurance, didn't have to, and I'm like, where's the value of that? Where did he learn the value of a car? And he didn't learn the value of a car until I think he got into his first accident. And then it was like, oh, okay, the dealership will take care of repairing it, but this was my car. And it kind of hit him that he had responsibilities to that vehicle as well. So yeah, you sometimes have to make kids earn stuff to stop giving them so much. Give them your time, give them your love, give them your wisdom, give them their inspiration, give them encouragement, and stop giving them things. Things in the long run break, or they get discarded, but it's the memories and the time you spend, and the value of who you are, and that you're willing to put yourself out there, that I think is what's most important for children.
I think that what you just said is so crucial. My nephew, who is 25, can recall times with my dad, who's now gone, who invested time and energy with him, teaching him little lessons here and there. And at 25, he's so appreciative of the things that he got to learn through my dad, his grandfather. So it's wonderful that you're saying those things. Yes, show them love. That's what matters. The things that make a difference.
And that's what's going to help shape them as human beings moving into the future. I mean, our kids are our future. I'm not going to be here forever. I know that, although I'm pushing for it. I figure, eternity is really great. It kind of looks good. But my son is my legacy, and my grandchildren are my legacy. My son is doing an amazing job. He's a published author. He is an amazing thinker, and I'm so glad that he is a thinker. He thinks outside the box. He tries new things, and he still, I always want to cry. He still seeks my counsel on things, which I think is incredible. That he'll call and say, "Well, mommy," and I'm like, "Oh boy, you're 43 years old. Will you stop calling me mommy?" It's hilarious. But he reverts back to being 8 or so. It's like, "Well, mommy, blah 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 blah," and he'll ask my opinion on things, or he'll run something by me that's going on at work. Maybe he wants to try something new, and I find that to be incredibly affirming, that I did a good job. You really don't know that you're being a good parent until they become parents, and then you see how they parent, or how they interact with you. I remember when he was little, I overheard a conversation he had with one of his friends. Someone asked him who his best friend was, and he said, "Well, my mom's my best friend." And they thought that was kind of odd. He said, "Well, my mom's my best friend, but I know I'm not hers." He understood that there was that relationship, that he could come to me, he could talk to me about anything. It didn't matter. I wouldn't judge him. I wouldn't yell at him about doing something stupid. I'd rather know up front and deal with it. And I think, having been a single parent for most of his life, I divorced his dad when he was like 4, and having raised him as a single mother for most of his life, I wanted him to understand that it was basically the two of us, and that if he wasn't honest, I said I couldn't help him out with things if I didn't know what was going on. So I instilled that trust in him, that I wouldn't betray his trust. And there were times when he would tell me stuff and I just wanted to reach out and strangle him or smack him up alongside the head. But I kind of, that, okay, tell me more. He would tell me the whole thing, and I'd say, give me a moment. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You're kind of doing this in your head, like, okay, what do I do now? But because I respected the fact that he was willing to tell me something that was intimate, or that was bothering him, that was pressing on his psyche, I couldn't betray the trust and judge him. I had to listen. I had to help him work through a lot of problems and do a lot of problem solving on his own, and kind of give him the advice of, well, if it was me, I think I would probably try this versus that, or well, when you did that, then what happened, and do you think that was the best way to go? So I would kind of like help him work through problems. And I see now that he is a thinker. He's very introspective. He is very intuitive. He is very caring about fellow human beings. But he is his own person. He is his own person. So I am grateful that I got one of the good kids in there. I see some of my friends' kids and I'm going, oh, you need to tighten that rein up a little. It's a little late now, but their kids have gotten into trouble, have gotten into drugs, have gotten into all kinds of stuff, or in jail. And I look at that and I'm so grateful that mine did none of the above. Um, he's a boy, he gets into stuff, but nothing that he couldn't get out of. And I told him, if you do something stupid and you end up in jail, I'll come visit you on occasion. I'll put money on your book. But if you do something, that's right and you end up in jail, I will be the first person there to defend you. So it's a matter of principle as to why you end up in bad situations. Were you doing the right thing? Yes. I was protesting and we got arrested. I'll be there. Well, me and my friends decided to do XYZ and they caught us and I'm in jail. Have a nice life. See you later. You did dumb stuff. You got to pay the price for it. There's always a price to pay. There's always a consequence for our actions. And I think I've always taught that to my son that, think about what you're doing before you do it. And just because all the other kids are doing it, is it the right thing to do? What are the consequences if it goes sideways? Who's going to be blamed? And generally, a lot of his friends were not Black. So he would be the first scapegoat that people would look at. And I'm like, don't put yourself in those situations, baby. Just don't. So, and I try and instill that in my grandkids too, that they lead a very sheltered life by comparison to what I grew up with. Times have changed. Kids can't just go outside and play anymore. I remember growing up and it was pretty much, we were left on our own. So the only rule was you have to be in the house when the street lights came on. That is a rule. And so you'd be home when the street lights came on. But for the most part, in the morning, you'd leave after breakfast and they wouldn't see you all day. Can't do that with your kids now, which is kind of sad that they don't have the freedoms that we had 50, 60 years ago. But so they lead a very sheltered life where, the parents are driving them places. The parents are staying with them for whatever activity. Even at school, there's, certain level of monitoring going on. So it's interesting how they're growing up versus how I grew up. But I still try and give them the freedom. Like when they come to visit me, we have a park that's close by. And I say, well, go to the park. Got your cell phone? Give me a call if anything jumps off, So it's only like a half a block away. And I think it's because, it's a neighborhood park. And people in the neighborhood know me because I'm back in my family home that I grew up in. So I know all of my neighbors. They kind of look out for them too. They're like, don't mess with Robin's grandkids, and so it was kind of nice. Even when John was growing up and we were back in Westchester, it was like, okay, now that's Miss Winnie's grandchild or that's Miss Robin's grandchild or child. Don't mess with them. So I like that idea of community, which we're lacking right now. We lack a sense of community, which is sad. It's sad.
Yeah, we definitely have a lot of work to do.
We do. Everybody wants something new and shiny, but sometimes, falling back to what was old sometimes is better. I remember I was out and one of the neighbors, an older woman, you always call them Miss So-and-so or you call them by their last name. And she had said something, and I guess she caught me the wrong way. And I said something snippy back to her. Now, I might have been like 8 or 9 years old. I said something snippy back to her. By the time I got home, my auntie was at the door saying, "Oh, you want to talk bad to Miss So-and-so, blah, 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 blah." I mean, I got my butt whooped, but it was because I was disrespectful. And I mean, I didn't even make it home until they were on the phone calling and saying, little Robin was doing blah, blah, blah. And I was mad at her for calling, but at the same time, looking back on it, it was a sense of community because it takes, I think Hillary Clinton was right when she said it takes a village. That was like her motto. It does take a village to raise children. And so you have to have family. You have to have extended family. You have to have friends that are all part of raising that child to be a contributing human being and a well-rounded human being as well. And we're missing that so sorely these days. I wish we had more of it.
That's why we're in the world, Robin. so we can spread better messages and allow people to think, just like you said, become a thinker. And that's why you're the devil's advocate for people to actually pay attention to how life is proceeding and how
I
are
do.
they being.
I do. I always ask thought-provoking questions, and they're like, how'd she come up with that? Why can't she just go with the flow? Why is she trying to interrupt? I'm the interrupter of, like, wait a minute, something's not sitting right here. We're not little zombies. Let's think about this. Why are we blindly following this person? I think that's why I have such a problem with, I call it organized religion, because they expect you to blindly follow um, what they say. My brother, bless his little heart, um, he found God several times, which I think was interesting. And I kept telling him, God was never lost. You were. And he would start a conversation with me. Hey sis, how you doing? Are you saved? And I said, saved from what? And what am I saved from? I knew perfectly well what he was talking about, because he was such a zealot for Christianity. And I said, I said, is this the same Christianity that started all those religious wars in the medieval time in the name of Christianity? Is this the same Christianity that says thou shalt not kill, but would kill because you're not a Christian? Okay. And the same thing when I talk to people who are of Muslim faith or Jewish, whatever faith they are, that for somehow they justify killing people in the name of their religion. I said, how stupid is that? Because I don't think like you, because I don't believe what you believe, there's something wrong with me that I need to be destroyed. I have a problem with our Christians in this country who feel like it's okay to impose their will on everybody else. And I thought, I just think about, okay, you follow Jesus' teaching. I said, but yet you don't like Jewish people. Do you realize that Christ was a Jew? Hello. And if you don't believe in Jesus Christ, you're not getting into heaven. And I laugh about that. I said, so for the thousands of years before Christ was born, what happened to all those people? None of them got into heaven. And I just make them start thinking about things like, why do you blindly follow what is written? Who wrote the Bible? Who wrote the Quran? And they look at me and they're like, well, God did. I said, no, man did. Man interpreted what they thought God was trying to tell them. You can't really understand until you start talking to God. And I laugh about it. I said, because, I have lots of friends who are Catholics. They're devout Catholics. And I say, why do you need to pray to a saint to talk to God? Can't you just pick up the phone and talk to God directly? And they look at me like I've lost my mind. I'm like, I don't need Saint Christopher or Saint this or Saint that to talk to God. Just, talk to God. Yo, God, it's me, kind of thing. And they just look at me like, oh, she's a blasphemer. Oh my God. And I laugh about that. And I said, like I said, I make them think outside the box. I don't believe my job is to change people's beliefs in their religion. Mine is just to make them think that it's okay to be different. And accept those who are different. If you accept me for who I am and that I'm spiritual, I believe in a higher being that, but I don't necessarily can't say it's Allah or Buddha or, whoever. But I believe in that higher being, that essence that's out there that kind of guides us. And I think there's a godlike presence in all of us, but it's called acceptance of others, tolerance of others. I may not believe what you believe. You may not believe what I believe, but we're here to coexist. Let's find a happy middle ground somewhere. I know it sounds so easy, but
You
so many
hit
people just
so
don't
many
do it.
things that I thoroughly believe in respecting each other and allowing each other to be what each individual is versus putting demands on others and saying that this is the only way to live and be in the world. And in the name of that, we get to do anything, everything we think is right for us, not for someone else. I'm with you on that one, Robin, 100%.
Yes, yes.
Our
I mean,
humanity would be so
imagine
much
a world
different.
where everybody was the same. I know. Just imagine a world where everybody was the same. That's like eating vanilla ice cream all the time. I'm sorry. I like chocolate, strawberry, caramel, yeah,
Actually, we wouldn't
pistachio. I
be
mean,
humans if everything is the same. Because then where would
But
this
that's what people are
incredible
striving.
mind of
I
ours
know, but
go?
that's the mindset of a lot of people. Like, if you don't think like I do, then there's something wrong with you, and it's like off with your head kind of thing. And I think about that. I said, like, you are so intolerant of others and their differences. What makes you right and them wrong? Show me where it says you're the right one and that I'm the wrong one. Please, identify that to me. And unfortunately, we have a lot of people in this country that have that kind of plantation mentality where they need to dominate someone in order to make themselves feel better about who they are. And I'm thinking, wow, that's what does that say about you as a person? That you need to impose your will on someone else to make you feel better about who you are because you don't like who you are. I happen to like who I am, as crazy and as wonky as I am. I happen to like who I am, or who I'm still becoming. Um, and mine is, if you don't like me, hey, guess what? That's okay. I am not everybody's cup of tea. I do understand that, and that is perfectly okay with me. But it doesn't mean that I respect you less for not liking me. It's not like I'm going to go out of my way to change who I am so that you would like me. Mine is like, oh well, you know,
Great segue.
you
How
can
do
live over
people
there, I'll live
find
over
you,
here.
Robin?
We're fine.
How can people
How can
find
people
you?
find
What's the best way for them to
you?
connect with you? I got a couple more things to ask you, but how can they connect with you?
Who says I want to be found? I'm in the witness protection program. I always laugh about this. I'm in the witness protection program. I don't want to be found. Through LinkedIn, they can find Robin Hurd Graham. RJ Graham Consulting is the name of my company. My email address is rgraham@marketingplace.com. I'm pretty easy to be found if you just look up Robin Hurd Graham. You can find me. You can do an internet search. You'll find me.
Let me ask a couple more questions. One, if I put you in
Okay.
front of a group of individuals that are in their early 20s, and I'm going to say they're both males and females, early 20s, what would you like to say to them about launching a life and a career that is worthy? What would you say to them? What advice would you give to someone in their early 20s?
Well, if I'm put in front of a group, the first thing I'm going to ask them is, what are their aspirations? You kind of have to figure out where they are. What's their background? And I always ask this question, and I always tell them it's not an age question. I said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I ask people who are in their 80s that same question. What do you want to be when you grow up? What do you see yourself doing? If the world were perfectly round, what would you be doing that makes you happy? Not necessarily what you're trained in, but what makes you happy. And by them starting to think about that and ask those questions of themselves, then I can tell them then I can give them advice once I know where they're coming from. And it basically is follow your heart, follow your passion. One thing I learned very early in my career is follow your passion and the money will follow. So when you're doing what is true to your heart, that makes your heart sing, people will find you. People will want to hire you. People want to give you money. It's great. Like I said, I found my passion in training. Well, cooking too, because I love to cook. And when I got divorced, my side hustle was catering. And because I was doing, like, friends would ask, would I bring certain things to parties and so forth. Then it was like, can you cater the party? Then it was like, well, I've got this meeting for 100 people. Can you do breakfast? So it was like people would find me because I was doing what I was passionate about. So that old adage of, do what you love and the money will follow. I still stick by that. So when you're doing stuff that you absolutely love, one, you're happy, your soul is singing, and people recognize that. I have followers now because I love to do arts and crafts, and my latest passion is quilling, which is the art of using paper. And I've done some extraordinary pieces, I think, for family and friends, and they're like, you should be selling these on Etsy and blah 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 blah. I said, no. Let me tell you why, because then it becomes work, and work is a 4-letter word. I don't do a lot of things with 4-letter words, except unless it's play or fun. But so when it becomes work to me, then it becomes something I have to do versus something I want to do. So I tend not to share a lot of things I do for profit, because then it becomes work. executive coaching, resume writing, training. It's work, but it's also my passion. But my art side, you have to be referred to me in order for me to do something nice for you as far as arts and crafts are concerned.
Robin, you've been a delight. I have one last question for you. Is there
Yes,
anything
ma'am.
that you'd like to say that I didn't ask so we don't get off the spot and Rima didn't ask me this? Is there anything you'd like to say?
I think we've kind of covered the whole gamut here. I have thoroughly enjoyed this. You're right. Podcasting is kind of a conversation. I don't think I will ever do podcasting on my own. I don't think I have that much to say, but I thoroughly enjoyed this. This is so exciting. So now I won't be so afraid of it, in the future. Like, so you got to jump in and try new things all the time. Here I am at 66. I'm still trying new things. This whole gardening thing is new to me. This is my second year with a garden. Last year I was thoroughly excited that anything grew because I always thought I had a brown thumb. I would kill. I mean, I'd go to the store and buy plants, and they're like, "No, please don't take us home. You're going to kill us." But all of a sudden in the last 2 years, things that I have touched have started to grow again, and I think it's because I've started to grow again. Um, I got out of a long-term relationship. Love him, love him, love him, still do, but on different paths. We came to a fork in the road, and he went his way, I went mine. We're still good friends. And all of a sudden, I started to rediscover who I was, starting to embrace all the things that I had been kind of putting to the side to take care of someone else. And all of a sudden, things are starting to flourish. Like I said, my philosophy was I'm going to plant a garden. And if something grows, great. If it doesn't, oh, well, there's next year. So it wasn't like it was like, failure. It was just like, okay, you learn from it this year, then next year you'll do better. And I had a bumper crop of tomatoes last year, zucchini and squash and okra and jalapeno peppers. My kale didn't do so. My collards didn't do well. My spinach didn't do well. My basil did great. My rosemary did great. Couldn't grow mint to save my life. I mean, it was like certain things just failed, and other things were, they did great. So I had a good harvest last year, in my opinion. Um, I'm bound and determined to grow mint this year. So I asked my neighbor if I could take some of his cuttings, and he was gracious. He's like, please take as many as you want. So I replanted some of those in the backyard. They seem to be thriving. But here's the kicker. I was out because I have a puppy, and occasionally you have to clean up after them. I was out in the upper yard cleaning up after him, and there were like weeds growing where I have rocks. And I thought, well, that's kind of weird. So, I'm pulling them up, and I pulled one up, and I'm like, wait a minute, this is mint. Why is mint growing by my back gate? I never planted mint there. I planted it in a planter box, which I thought was hilarious. So, it's growing, not because of me. All of a sudden, my collards, which failed last year, were blooming in the early spring, and I have lots of fresh, leafy green collards that were growing. And I thought, because, they're kind of a cold weather plant. And I was in the upper yard. I call it the back 40. And it's really, when I say back 40, it's really an 8 by maybe 4.5 foot raised garden, but it's in the back of the yard, so it's my back 40. Um, I was clipping some of the leaves off to have fresh collard greens, and I thought it had gone to seed because I saw these little flowers, this little runner, and it was like on the ground. So I picked it up, and I can't even make this stuff up. They're green beans. I never planted green beans, but there's green beans, growing in my garden, which I thought was really unusual. But in reflecting this last couple of weeks as I'm planting the garden and putting seeds and seedlings in that I've started over the winter, I find it's very reflective of life. Sometimes things grow the way you want to, and sometimes it's unexpected. But taking the opportunity to nurture something new, whether it's a talent, whether it's a skill you're trying to learn, you've got to put the time in. You've got to cultivate it. You've got to nurture it. You've got to water it. You've got to nourish it. You've got, give it fertilizer to grow. You've got to give it sunshine and light. And then it will start to blossom. It'll start to grow. And then you'll reap the harvest of it. So I hate to say that my garden is kind of a metaphor for life, but it is. You have to, try new things. Like this year I planted celery. from the stalk of, the whole celery, the bunch of celery you get. I chopped off the bottom, put it in water, and it's growing new celery. Never thought I would do that. So I'm trying new things in my garden. I'm also trying new things in my life, like this podcast. I'm reading different books, different genres. You've got to start experimenting. Like I said, some things will fail. That's expected. Some things will blossom and grow. That's expected. But unless you're willing to put the work in, you're not going to do anything. If you just sit there and think about it, but not put actions to it, nothing's going to happen. So, like I said, my gardening has really kind of opened my eyes to life. When you think of 66 and you're at retirement age or repurposing age, you start to kind of think on the other side of things, or the morbid side, like, oh, life is over. I'm not going to do anything else. Mine is, what's new? What else can I do? What else can I try before I leave this plane? And like I said, I've gotten back into casting spells. I always tell people I'm a witch, and sometimes it's a witch with a B. Um, and becoming very, very spiritual and lighting candles and meditating and things that I used to do all the time, and now I'm getting back into it. So don't be afraid to revisit things that worked for you early in your life as you reach the sunset. And like I said, I'm enjoying life. I'm enjoying new things. I'm enjoying talking with people and connecting with people. I'm enjoying growing things and getting excited about, oh, what am I going to can this year? Last year I made limoncello, and this year I'm making orange liqueur, and so it's like the different things I make. Homemade vanilla extract. So I'm getting into I call it my crunchy granola phase. So my DIY, I'm doing all kinds of things that I never thought I would A, have time for, or B, want to do. But I figured if it works, it works. If it doesn't, okay, let's try something else. So yeah, I think that's what I want people to take away from this podcast is the ability to try new things and expect that if you fail, you fail, or try something different, try it a different way.
Robin, I so appreciate you and love you. Thank you for your time and energy and all your expertise and all the wonderful stories. I
Thank you
appreciate
so
your
much
time.
for having me. Like I said, this was a blast. You made this so effortlessly, effortless for me to do. And I was kind of intimidated. I'm like, Rima wants me on her podcast, really? Oh my God, I'm freaking out here. But you have been an incredible hostess. You put me at ease. You made this fun, and I really appreciate the person that you are and your wonderful spirit that you have too, because you're freaking incredible, chick. You really are. And I definitely want to get to know you a little bit better and invite you into the circle in those regards, because you're good people. You just are. I like to surround myself with good people. I like to refer people to other good people. So I definitely want to know more about you. So maybe the next podcast can be about you.
Thank you. I appreciate that very much. And to our incredible listeners and viewers, please remember our attitude always determines our altitude in life. And we'll see
Yes,
you in the next podcast. Thank you, Robin.
you're very welcome.